Penguin Random House Audio presents The Physics of Superheroes Goes Hollywood, an all-new exploration of the real science of the multiverse, the quantum realm, and everything in between. This is the author, James Kakalios. Note to listeners, this audiobook includes a bonus PDF with figures from the book. To Rafael Fernandez, my movie-going partner, physics colleague, and the astonishing alter Magneto. Introduction. The New Golden Age. There is little doubt that future historians will refer to the early part of the 21st century as the Golden Age of geekdom. Comic book characters that were previously known only to die-hard fans are now part of mainstream culture due to the popularity of movies and television programs featuring superheroes. The global box office of just 5 of Marvel Studios' films, The Avengers 2012, Avengers Age of Ultron 2015, Avengers Infinity War 2018, Avengers Endgame 2019, and Spider-Man No Way Home 2021, is greater than the 2024 fiscal year total budget of the National Science Foundation, one of the primary sources of scientific research funding in the U.S. The reach and influence of these characters is truly all-encompassing. The rise of superheroes into the public consciousness has happened relatively quickly. In the 2002 film Catch Me If You Can, Tom Hanks, playing FBI agent Carl Hanratty, searches for the forger and card artist Frank Abagnale, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Early in the film, Hanratty meets Abagnale, not realizing that he has inadvertently come across the person he is seeking. Abagnale fools Hanratty into believing he is actually a CIA agent, giving his name as Barry Allen. In a full movie theater, I was the only person who laughed at this reveal, while my wife and those sitting nearby turned to look at me, wondering what was so funny. While a 1960s FBI agent might be fooled by Abagnale using the Flash's secret identity as an alias, it is doubtful that this joke would go over as many heads today. Another example. In the summer of 2023, I saw a 5-year-old boy walking with his mother in Antalya, Turkey. The boy was wearing a white t-shirt with Captain America's face on the front and a backpack that featured images of all the Avengers as portrayed in the 2012 Marvel film. Any doubt as to which hero was his personal favorite was removed by the small plastic Captain America-style shield he wore on his right arm. Captain America was created in 1941 by Joe Simon and Jacob Kurtzberg, whose pen name was Jack Kirby. 2 young men in their 20s from New York's Morningside Heights and Lower East Side neighborhoods, respectively, who were just trying to make a living writing and drawing comic books during the Depression. They never dreamed that their creation would continue to inspire all over the world 80 years later. While superhero films and television shows are not a recent phenomena, Fleischer Studios produced animated Superman shorts in color for movie theaters starting in 1941, just 3 years after the Man of Steel's debut in Action Comics #1. The past 25 years have seen a striking growth in the number of such features. 20th Century Fox's X-Men premiered in 2000, while Sony's Spider-Man came out 2 years later. Marvel Comics had sold the cinematic adaptation rights of these characters, along with the Hulk, the Fantastic Four, and Daredevil, back in the 1990s when it was struggling financially. The success of some, but not all, of these films led Marvel to produce their own movies, using characters they had retained the rights to, as they were considered too obscure for licensing by other movie studios. Beginning in 2008, with Iron Man, starring Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, and Warner Brothers' The Dark Knight, featuring Christian Bale as Batman and Heath Ledger as the Joker, not a year has gone by that hasn't seen the release of multiple superhero movies and television shows, relating the adventures of Marvel heroes as well as those of DC Comics, such as Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. The first edition of my book, The Physics of Superheroes, was published in 2005, while the spectacular second edition came out in 2009, just 1 year after Iron Man and The Dark Knight lit the match that ignited the superhero explosion at the multiplex. In these earlier editions, I drew on 80 years of print superhero comic books to provide illustrations of physics concepts and principles. As much as possible, I selected, the technical term is cherry-picked, comic book examples where the heroes got the science right. I started, as in a standard introductory physics class, with a consideration of forces in motion. I then turned to discussions of momentum, energy, thermodynamics, electricity, and magnetism, all the way to quantum physics. This is not that book. Here, I'll consider concepts and situations in superhero movies and TV shows and examine the real-world physics that underlies these fictional scenarios. While I don't go to the movies with a pad of paper and a calculator, waiting for my physics sense to start tingling, I'm nevertheless delighted whenever the characters on the screen, big or small, get their science right. It is just such examples, similarly cherry-picked, that I will discuss here. Of course, there are many times the movies and TV shows get their science wrong, but I think it's more fun and interesting to examine correct applications rather than egregious errors. In this Hollywood edition, you, fearless reader, will learn the real physics underlying the multiverse. True to its name, there are different interpretations of what multiverse means. If there really is a quantum realm, yes. Why someone the size of an ant can knock someone out with one punch, it involves the Higgs boson. Whether nanotechnology can fabricate and alter Iron Man's suit, not yet, but maybe soon. Whether we can create fibers as strong as Spider-Man's webbing. Actually, scientists have made threads 60 times stronger. Whether a material such as vibranium is real, it is, and you can fabricate it using a pencil and Scotch tape. Whether we can control devices just by thinking, yes. And the connection between the Infinity Stones and one of the greatest mathematical minds of the 20th century. Hint, she's not Albert Einstein. This book will confirm what we have all long suspected. They couldn't put it in a movie if it weren't true. As in the earlier editions, I won't belabor the superpowers themselves, as they nearly always violate the laws of physics as we understand them. Rather, we'll grant each character a one-time miracle exception to the laws of nature, and then explore the real physics that they encounter when using their powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. If there's one thing I've learned from my years of reading comic books, it's that combining words and pictures make for a highly effective form of communication. For the illustrations in this text, it turned out to be simpler to have professional comic book artist Gene Ha provide the necessary figures. In place of the hero or villain under discussion, we will use the hero featured on the cover of this book, who also appeared on the covers of the first 2 editions of The Physics of Superheroes. While nameless in those earlier books, I can now reveal that this champion of science is actually Captain Legally Protected Intellectual Property, Clip-Hip to his fans. Clip-Hip has the unique power of being able to perform any task called upon to illustrate a given scene or physics principle, without violating any litigious company's copyrights. We'll begin with one of the greatest superhero films of all time, 1978 Superman the Movie, starring Christopher Reeve as the Man of Steel, and ask, could Superman reverse time by flying rapidly around Earth? If it was not already clear, this book is massively packed with spoilers. But seriously, if you haven't yet seen these superhero movies and TV shows, and you're reading this in a bookstore wondering whether you should buy this book, and if you'll be able to follow the arguments here, let me assure you, yes and yes. Chapter 1. I believed a man could fly. General Relativity saves Lois Lane. The first time I saw Christopher Reeve as Superman was one evening in 1977 in Midtown Manhattan at 57th Street and 5th Avenue. 9 West.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?